Good morning, good morning, good morning. I can see you all quietly joining there. Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday. It must be one of our Wednesday Zooms. And this week is a very exciting Wednesday Zoom, I have to say, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. It's also, I have to say, a bit of a dangerous Wednesday Zoom because I could quite easily take over our expert today, not with the knowledge that he's got, but in terms of the passion I've got for the destination. I've been to Australia probably 6 times. I absolutely love the place. There is so much to see and do there. And I was chatting before you all joined to Matt and said, my God, he's got a challenge today to try and get Australia into like 40 minutes because there are just so many things to see and do. And we'll probably talk about it maybe, but you know, the big icons are the things everybody thinks about, the opera houses, harbour bridges and Ayers Rock. But actually, the destination just has so much to offer that even though I've been half a dozen times, I could go back so many more times because there is so much more to do and to see. It's such a fab destination. For those of you that are new to our Wednesday Zooms, what the format is Matt will give us a presentation, and then there's a chance at the end for questions and answers. So all you do is tap your screen. There is a chat facility there. Just type your question in, and then at the end of the session, I'll pick that up with Matt, and we'll just buzz back any questions and things that you've got. Because as I always say, these Zooms are actually for your benefit. So you know, if Matt doesn't mention something you want the answer to, or it sparked a thought, then please ask away, because that's exactly what the sessions are for. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Matt Greenwood. Matt is a bit of an expert on Australia, it's fair to say, and no doubt will inspire you fully about the virtues of this gorgeous place. So Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much, Miles, and good morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us on this rather overcast Wednesday morning. We shall just get the slides on screen now, and then we'll get underway. So I'm just checking, Miles, are we all good to go? Yeah, fantastic.
Good to go, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so welcome everybody. So first up, my name's Matt, and I'm part of Gold Medal Travel. And just a bit of background about Gold Medal. So we've been established for over 40 years as a worldwide tour operator to the trade. And so we've been working with Miles Morgan Travel for pretty much the whole 40 years nearly. And we've pretty much got our roots up in Lancashire, up in the northwest. And we're now part of the wider Donata Group, which is headquartered in Dubai. And you may be more familiar with our overall parent company, the Emirates Group. So we are quite a large organisation, and we do pretty much cover the whole world. But today, as you're well aware, we're just going to be talking about the fantastic Australia. And as Miles mentioned, he certainly does give me a run for the money with the passion he holds for the destination. So as you can see, it's a very large country. I don't think you need me to tell you that. You pretty much need to go back at least more than once. You're never going to get to see it all in the one trip, and this is what we're here today to hopefully inspire you to do. So firstly, on with getting down to Australia. So being a worldwide tour operator, we work with over 100 scheduled airlines. Many of these do fly down to Australia, and we're able to offer you fares, connections, stopovers with all of these carriers. The one I'm going to focus on at the moment is Qantas, but sticking with the Australia theme. And really, there is no specific reason. However, flying with Qantas, you do get a whole host of stopover options. And although we are talking about Australia today, there are a multitude of options should you wish to break your journey up en route, maybe stop over in the Far East, over in the USA, or even down in Africa in the Middle East. So Qantas itself they've been flying to the UK for a number of years, and they've now started non-stop flights down to Perth, which will be starting in July after the break for the COVID. So they're on non-stop Dreamliner flights. That will take you down to Perth in approximately 17 hours. And the Dreamliners themselves have been geared up to accommodate guests for the long journey in terms of spacing of the seats and the in-flight experience. In addition to that, they also offer daily A380 flights down to Singapore and onwards to Sydney. And from Singapore and Perth, you're able to connect onwards to many destinations within Australia itself. But as I mentioned before, if you wish to stop over in conjunction with the partner Emirates, you're also able to fly to Dubai, get your journey there, continue on to Australia, or even on to Asia. And you can maybe take a tour there, maybe a cruise down to Australia before you embark on your Australia adventure. Qantas themselves, they offer 4 cabins to travel in, economy, premium economy, business and first. And just to give you a brief snapshot of their cabins, you'll be able to see on the screen now. So the economy, pretty much, it's very hard to make an economy cabin sound very sexy, I do know. However, when I've flown with them, I've found that they do have quite an intuitive footrest on there. So they just have a net under the seats that you can slide your feet in, give you some socks, and it does elevate your feet and make the journey a lot more comfortable as well. And the Australia experience really does start once you step on board, basically from the food and the wine that they serve. You'll find top quality wines even in economy, and also self-service snack bars at the back should you get a bit peckish during the evening. Should you wish to upgrade your experience, they also offer a dedicated premium economy cabin. And on the A380 especially, this premium economy cabin is located at the back of the upper deck, and it does give you a real sense of flying in a private aircraft because it's such a small cabin, and the seats are very wide, obviously, with quite a large recline. And the beauty of these is they are in hard shells. So if you recline your seats, you don't encroach onto the person behind as well. And that's obviously great if you've got somebody in front of you. And obviously business class, they do offer, they will be offering chauffeur drive later this year. That's coming back as well, obviously with flatbed offerings. And the great thing is with their business class service that you all do also have access to their lounge. It's Terminal 3 at Heathrow, which has just gone a major refurbishment to get your adventure off onto a real Australian theme. So the all-important questions. As we've already established, Australia is a large destination, as you can see from here. So I'm here to help you with all those key elements. So where do we start? When to go? How long do we need? And do we tour? Are we driving? Or do we cruise down there? So where to start? When to go? So you've got basically, you can split the year into 3 seasons. So you've got the low, shoulder and high season. And depending on which destination within Australia, you will get a different experience. So, for instance, in the low season, which is typically our summer, further south, if you go further south in the Tropic of Capricorn, you can find that the days tend to be fairly sunny, but can be quite cool, especially in the evening. But the great thing is you tend to find fewer crowds in the tourist destinations. Along with, and you'll find that your budget will go further in terms of accommodation as well. It's a great time to spot wildlife as well, as you'll tend to find during the cooler days, they tend to be more active. And it's a great opportunity to discover one of the many wineries dotted around Australia as well. And I'm sure everybody enjoys a glass of wine or two, and you certainly won't be disappointed when you're down in Australia. The shoulder season, probably one of my favourite times to visit. You can get great flight availability. It tends to be outside of school holidays. So if you do have the luxury of travelling, obviously without so what's the word I'm saying? Without the commitment of having to travel in the school holidays, you can find great availability there. And it's a perfect time to visit the north of Australia, typically North Queensland, Northern Territory. You'll tend to find we're starting into the dry season, and it's a lot more pleasant, both in terms of humidity as well. Obviously, traveling during spring, you'll tend to find a lot of wildlife in abundance as well. You'll tend to find a lot of young emerging from the parents' pouches, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to spot this on throughout the country as well. Perfect time to visit the centre of Australia. You'll tend to find warm days as well, not as chilly in the evening. And great for touring, the Kings Canyon, etc. around there. High season typically falls between December and February. Obviously, I don't need to probably tell you much here, but obviously temperatures do increase, especially further south, and the humidity builds up north as well. However, if you are travelling at this time of year, we do recommend travelling after the end of January, which is typically when schools do finish the school holidays. So if you start travelling in February, you'll tend to avoid a lot of the domestic crowds as well. And also how long? So how long do I need for my trip to Australia? Well, to be honest, no trip is too short or too long. So you could easily, as Miles mentioned before, you know, the cost of airfares coming down considerably over the years. It's a perfect opportunity to no longer consider Australia as the trip of a lifetime. Even if you only have 2 weeks, you can still get the true Australian experience, such as wine, wildlife, beaches, etc. In 2 weeks in a single state. So it does lend itself perfectly for single state self-drive itineraries. And if you do have the luxury of more than 2 weeks, then obviously you'll be able to see a lot more of the country. And what I do recommend is never to try and cram in too much. And it's very easy to do. So if you are at the early stages of planning your Australia trip, sometimes a good starting place would be to probably make a list of your absolute must-see essentials, maybe climbing the Sydney Harbour Bridge, taking in a show at the Opera House, also visiting the Reef, and also maybe making a separate list of would like to do. So basically in the time frame that you've got, I would like to do if time permits, etc. And the experts at Miles Morgan will then be able to make contact with us and will be able to tailor-make your experience, incorporating your absolute essentials and also incorporating as many would like to do's as we can. A general rule of thumb I tend to work to is try not to include one domestic flight in for each week that you're there. So for example, if you have 3-week window, obviously fly into your main gateway, say Sydney, your second week, 1 internal flight, and then your third week, 1 internal flight. And it just gives you a fine balance to maybe take 3 destinations then over the 3 weeks, and you're doing them in, you know, you're giving them enough time to discover what's there. And also as well, even if you are on a shorter itinerary, try and make plans if you can, maybe even if you just maybe thinking taking a trip maybe a few years later to go back to another part of the country and do that a bit more in depth as well. Now at GoModo, we're able to combine all the elements to make your holiday really memorable. So obviously we start with the flights and accommodation, but we do also offer 40 different cruise partners if you wish to incorporate a cruise to certain parts of Australia, or even if you're wishing to take a cruise from the Far East down to Australia as your means of entry. We work with a wide variety of car hire and motorhome operators as well, and we're able to create you a bespoke self-drive itinerary encompassing all the must-see highlights that there are in your chosen destination as well. And even if you are looking for some inspiration, then the dedicated experts at Miles Morgan are on hand there to help you with that as well. So firstly, as I mentioned before, we work with over 40 different cruise partners. All of the partners that we work with are obviously very well known, but we also work with a lot of smaller local operators. So for example, if it's not a large cruise ship you're looking for, we work with many operators on the Barrier Reef to maybe offer you like maybe a 2 or 3 day sailing experience on board a schooner. So even both ends of the spectrum are able to cater for whatever it is that you're looking to get out of your travels down there. Journey-wise, so as I mentioned before, we're able to incorporate car hire, motorhome hire, but even touring as well. So if you prefer to travel with a wider group, so we do offer excursion touring as well, and that's throughout Australia. Anything really from between 8 days up to 3 weeks, you tend to find, and they take in all of the major must-sees as well. So we also do excursion touring as well. So they tend to combine a series of day tours where you'll be with different people on each trip. But the benefit of doing the escorted one is when you're traveling throughout, you're traveling with the same group of people, and it's great to build up friendships as well through there. And it's especially great if you are a solo traveler. You'll tend to find many are geared up for there. And the great thing on escorted journeys as well is you'll tend to find that on board the vehicle that they're traveling in, you'll tend to move around seats. So you're never in the same seat for, say, 2 weeks. You tend to be moving around the vehicle, talking to different people as well. But in addition to them, we do also offer journeys that incorporate the iconic rail journeys. And you may have seen some of these on television recently. So you've got the Indian Pacific traversing the whole of Australia, originated in Perth, over the Nullarbor Plain into Adelaide, and then onwards to the journey to Sydney. You've then also got the Garn train, which originates in Adelaide and makes its way up through the Red Centre and up to Darwin as well. So the choices really are endless. Motorhome, as I mentioned before, this is quite a popular option for touring Australia, and it's great. It just gives you a real sense of freedom as well. A couple of questions that do get asked quite frequently with motorhomes, are the bed linen, utensils, etc. Are they included? And the operators that we work with, they do include all your bed linen. So if you prefer a duvet, pillow, or they even do offer sleeping bags as well. Some people, especially if you're traveling as friends, may not take too kindly to sharing a duvet. So they do even offer sleeping bags if you prefer them. But it also includes your cookery equipment, your crockery, outdoor chairs, table, etc. To really set you off on your travels as well. People also ask if you can pull up on the side of the road. The short answer really is it's not really encouraged in Australia. New Zealand do offer this, but in Australia you do have to go to campgrounds which are geared up for taking obviously motorhomes, etc. as well. So although in national parks they do offer these, you'll tend to find they don't offer the full facilities. However, the settings there, they really do speak for themselves. So it may be a good idea to combine most of your itineraries staying at dedicated campgrounds. And the great thing with that is they'll tend to have like on-site barbecues, etc. And that's a great way of getting chatting to locals, I've found as well. So you can obviously cook up some great food there and while the night away with a nice glass of red and a few beers with some locals there as well. Always keep a stash of $1 and $2 coins handy as well. There are some places that you do have to put these in for showers, but also great for doing laundry as well. So always bear that in mind. And for those that do prefer to freewheel it as well, there are many towns up and down the country that do offer free parking for overnight vehicles, but although these must be self-contained. And when we say self-contained, they have to have shower and toilet facilities. So if it's just one of the 2 berths, which is very basic, then you're not permitted to stay over there. But if you do have any questions on there, as Miles said, please do put them in the chat and we can take them at the end. So as I mentioned before, some of the iconic rail journeys that we're able to include, obviously the Ghan in the Indian Pacific, but there are many others as well that travel up the Queensland coast as well. And even excursion touring, some of the longer tours, but also a series of day tours and some of the shorter touring options. So, for example, if you're in Sydney, we do offer a very small group tour for 2 or 3 days up into the Blue Mountains and the Hunter Valley, and they will take you to some of the bespoke wineries there and also take you through to the Blue Mountains, where you get the opportunity to spot wildlife at dusk whilst enjoying a glass of champagne, for example. So in our brochure, we've also put together a selection of short itineraries as well. And these are designed really to add on to any stays that maybe going to visit friends or family, for example, and you may have another 10 days, 2 weeks, and you wish to see a bit more of Australia. These are just some ideas we put together. So you'll tend to find this one here, the Sydney Rock and Reef, is very popular for first timers. So as the name suggests, you basically start in Sydney. We can also include some day tours there. What I do recommend is if you've got an early flight coming into Sydney, is a lot of the times hotel check-ins can be 2-3 o'clock. Obviously, you've got that time in between. So go and drop off your case at your hotel. And Sydney Opera House do a 1-hour tour. Great to put in the morning. So maybe put that in late morning. And it just helps you acclimatise really to the time zone as well. And to really help get your bearings in Sydney, also recommend doing one of the many harbour cruises as well. So whether it's with lunch or with afternoon tea, then there are many options there. And probably one of my favourite ways to get into the heart of the city really is, rather than taking one of the city tours that are maybe on a vehicle, is what we're seeing now is there are a lot of smaller tour providers that offer walking tours. And these really allow you to get into the into the nitty gritty really. You'll tend to find, especially in Australia, a lot of cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and even Adelaide. A lot of the atmosphere, a lot of the vibe now is in some of the narrow alleys. So you'll get a lot of coffee shops, for example, in Melbourne that have popped up down a lot of alleys off main streets, which you'd never get down in a vehicle. And there's also the opportunity, if you're not too great on your feet, to maybe do a bicycle tour as well, which is a great way to acclimatise after a long flight. Onwards from there, we give you a few days then in the Red Centre into Ayers Rock. So obviously go and see the sun setting over Uluru, as it's known now. That's with a glass of bubbles and some snacks as well. And then obviously you've got Kings Canyon and some of the other national parks around there. And if you have the luxury of longer, I mean, you can easily spend up to a week there, because there's so many national parks and walking tours around there. It really is a great place to discover the real Australia. And then finally onto the Barrier Reef for the final few days. Obviously, Barrier Reef being one of the key highlights. But also going up into the rainforest and spotting some of the many very varied wildlife up there as well. There's a whole host of boutique accommodation up there. So, you know, if you wanted to extend your stay, we certainly do recommend it, and we can certainly make some great suggestions for you. So what I'm going to do now is basically, if you've just got 2 weeks, just want to showcase really how each state is able to put together and able to host you for the 2 weeks and really take in the full Australia experience. So in this example here, if you've just got 2 weeks and you're just flying into Melbourne, for example, I've put together a short itinerary to really showcase how you can make the most of your time there, and you're not having to have to do any internal flying whatsoever. So you can fly in and out of Melbourne in 2 weeks and really get a sense for the real Australia as well. So on arrival into Melbourne, as I mentioned before, we recommend taking a few days there, maybe do one of the escorted walking tours I was talking about. And there's a great arts and culture scene now up and coming in Melbourne. And by doing one of the walking tours, your guide there will be able to showcase the real Melbourne to you. And it's a great opportunity really to take in what there is to see, but also if you wish to then go back later in the day or even the following day, it really helps you get the bearings as well. So you've also got many opportunities to take a sports match. If you're there in January, for example, you've got the tennis that's on, but you've also got many domestic tournaments that also Melbourne play host to. So we can obviously give you a few hints and tips of maybe when to coincide your stay if that's what you're looking for as well. And the great thing with Melbourne is you're never too far from a beach. So obviously St Kilda probably being one of the more familiar one, and it's got a great tram system in Melbourne to help you get around as well. So you know you can if you've got you know maybe a slightly extended stay in Melbourne, you can still get you feel for the sand under your feet as well. If culture's your thing, then you are able to get the full Aboriginal experience with one of the tours there with a local guide. And they host this in the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. So they'll take you on a cultural tour, do a traditional Aboriginal welcome, also explain how the Indigenous people used to live off the plants there as well. So it is really in depth and quite an eye-opening tour as well. And even if you are into your horticulture, it's certainly a worthwhile experience taking in this destination as well. So leaving Melbourne, we'll pick up a hire car, and then maybe be familiar with the Great Ocean Road, which is one of the great drives of the world. It's been publicised on many times. So we're going to, rather than head straight out there, we're going to head a bit slightly inland first. So travelling through the Great Otway National Park, this takes you through a lot of lush greenery. Maybe very familiar with the UK. This is what it reminded me of. So great for hiking, trekking, a lot of horseback trails as well. But there is really a lot to see travelling through this part of Australia. So you'll find a lot of many townships along the way as well. A lot of local shops, and a great place to experience some fine dining as well. So you get some of these smaller townships that do play host to some real foodie destinations as well. For those beer lovers amongst us, there's some great craft ale. There's a great craft ale scene up and coming, especially down in Victoria. One that I can personally recommend as well, Forest Brewing Company, a great place to do some tastings. They do also offer a delicatessen style cafe as well. So it's a great place to stop for lunch. So I won't get involved in who will be doing the drive-in. Maybe that's something to battle out when you're there. But it's also a great base to hire a mountain bike and go off exploring as well. And the benefit of embarking the start of your journey coming this way is once you carry on and arrive into Port Campbell, which is probably just off the map here, this is where the famous 12 Apostles is located down on the bottom photo. Now, what you'll tend to find is a lot of day trips from Melbourne that take in the Great Ocean Road will set out along the way, along the coast down there, and then obviously stop at the 12 Apostles and then make the way back to Melbourne. It's a very well-trodden path. And the beauty of you travelling in a vehicle this way is when you arrive into Port Campbell, is once you arrive at the 12 Apostles, if you arrive there for sunset, this is where you'll get the experience of a lot of the pictures you see. So as you can see there, that picture was taken at sunset. And because of all the crowds have gone, there's hardly anybody there. And this is probably my most recent trip in 2019. We arrived there about 5 p.m, hardly a soul in sight. And we had this, we were able to get pictures like this. And I've done this trip before on a day trip from Melbourne. You know, you get in there about midday. The pictures don't really do it justice, but then you are battling for photo spots as well. So it's little things like that that we're here to help you plan. So once you're at Port Campbell as well, then you've got the opportunity to explore some of the famous shipwrecks as well at Lockhart Gorge. So there's a bit to do there, and we do recommend probably staying over for the night there. There's some very small town, but they do have a couple of little places to eat as well. Now, the next day, when you embark on your journey along the Great Ocean Road, you're then starting out in the morning, but you're then travelling against the flow of tourists. So as tourists are coming onto the Ocean Road, you're travelling in the opposite direction, which is a great opportunity, as I say, to avoid the crowds. Now, the Great Ocean Road, you may know a little about this already, but it's probably one of my favourite places to go spotting Indigenous wildlife in its own setting. So by taking a vehicle, then there are many stop points, and you're able to go on a variety of little walks into the forests and into the gullies as well. And if you look up, you'd be hard pressed not to spot one of the koalas. So keep your eyes peeled for them. And when you do see them in the wild, it really is kind of a heart-stopping moment as well. So you do see them on the TV, or even in some of the wildlife parks. But when you see them in the flesh, it does kind of make your whole trip, in my opinion. Traveling along the Great Ocean Road, you'll come across a whole myriad of local townships as well. So a lot of these are geared up for very laid-back lifestyle in terms of cafes, little bites to eat, and just basically whiling away an afternoon people watching. Great for surfing as well. So grab a coffee or something, head down the beach, and just go and watch these surfers. But also, if you are a foodie, this will be again one of the highlights of your trip as well. So doesn't sound not much to like there, and I can say this is definitely one of the highlights of my trip. Now, once you've done the Great Ocean Road, so rather than heading back to Melbourne, you're keeping a bit further south onto the peninsula there towards Queenscliff. And this is probably a bit off the beaten track, but the reason for doing this here is you can probably see in the map, it saves you having to go back up to Melbourne and back down. So there's a ferry that connects the two peninsulas between A and B on that photo. And there's some great undiscovered landscapes down here, in my opinion. Very up and coming wine region where Queenscliff is on that little peninsula. So if you're into some of the Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs here and over onto the Mornington Peninsula, which is just over from Sorrento and a bit further up, it's a great opportunity to take in a few cellar doors here. Now, once you've made the short ferry journey, and we can pre-book the ferry for you, it's only about 90 minutes. There's a little cafe on board as well, so it's not going to take up a whole day. So once you're back on the road, we're then able to stop over, and it's a great place for diving as well. So if you're a keen diver, there's some fantastic shipwrecks up and down that coast. So we're able to arrange something for you there if that's your cup of tea. And the main highlight here is obviously the Penguin Parade. You may have been more familiar with this, but by coming this way, we've brought you along the Mornington Peninsula, which, as I was saying, some great wineries along there, and brought you onto Phillip Island for the famous Penguin Parade this way. So with the Penguin Parade, again, you'll see many trips from Melbourne, but you'll tend to find the day trips themselves will be seated. Basically, the setup itself, there is many seats basically on one of the beaches in like a tiered formation. So you are quite a distance, so it can be quite hard to get photography, especially in the dark. So what we recommend is doing one of the smaller group tours. And with these smaller group tours, they get dedicated access to some of the seating a lot closer to where the penguins come up. So it's great for taking photography. And there is also the opportunity to access like an underground dugout, which has been geared especially for this. So it's great in inclement weather. And what you'll see is when the penguins come out the water and go up the beach to nest, is they're actually walking past these dugouts, and you actually get in on their eye level as well. So you're looking at the penguin at the eye, which is something very surreal. Now, once you're on Phillip Island as well, I probably recommend to stay overnight there. You've also got the Motorsport Museum. So if you are into your cars, then definitely the opportunity to stop there and check out the history there, and go and check out the Grand Prix circuit. And there's a great opportunity to get on some of the karts as well. So if you do fancy, if you're a bit of a dab hand there and there's no race on, then if there's a small group of you, then it's a great opportunity to put your right foot down and taking some of the bends there. It's a fantastic experience. Now, leaving Phillip Island, this is probably, again, a bit off the beaten track. One of my favourite parts of the whole trip, this as well. I know I keep saying that. Wilson's Promontory. And this is probably about 3 hours if you were to go from Melbourne. So it's a bit shorter from Phillip Island. Now, this little peninsula is one of the southernmost tips of mainland Australia. So it's a national park. It's basically one road in, one road out. Very, very uncrowded as well. So it's a great opportunity to totally escape from the hustle and bustle, and wildlife as well. So you're basically going to be unlucky if you don't get to see a wombat, especially at dusk. So when I was down there, we were staying in some of the cabins, and we had about 2 or 3 little wombats squatting around in the evening as well. And I mean, obviously, you encourage not to feed them, but they are very tame, and it's a great photograph opportunity as well. So it's great for hiking, getting into the great outdoors as well. Some fantastic walks, and even for all, basically, if you're one of the less experienced hikers, so there are short walks. Anything from 15-20 minutes. even catering to those more experienced that can be 8-9 hours for a day, or even multi-day ones as well. So I'd definitely recommend spending a few days down there. I know when I've been down there before, been talking to people who've never been and really wish they'd extended the stay down there. And on the way back, if making your way back up to Melbourne, again, you're coming through the Dandenong Ranges, a great opportunity to come across some local townships, get mixing with the locals. And if you're traveling in spring or summer, some of the colours there really are fascinating. The historic steam train, the Puffin Billy, this is a great little break for the journey. So basically, this is like a 1.5 to 2 hour steam ride train throughout the ranges, and it's a 2-course lunch on board. Definitely recommend this, and even if you're not a steam train enthusiast, it's a great experience to while away a lazy lunch, travelling through some lush greenery and some fantastic gardens as well. And what we do also encourage as well is for any itinerary, whether it's this specific one or for the Sydney Rock and Reef or any itinerary that we're doing, is maybe incorporate something that little bit special, something that's memorable, and will something for you to look forward to at the end as well. And I've just included this. It's an organisation called Luxury Lodges of Australia, and it brings together probably about a dozen or two of some of Australia's finest independent lodges. And you'll tend to find these are in some of the most fantastic settings, can be really off the beaten track. And it's really a very discreet luxury, but also as well, it's all about the food, the wine, and the local people as well. As we saw before, we had the Longitude 131, which is at Ayers Rock, and this is just one of the properties there. And this is just one of the accommodation types that they offer. So, you know, you can imagine waking up to sight of Uluru in the background, and whilst taking breakfast on your veranda there as well. But these really are in the kind of showcase locations, and it's all about the experience, not just the accommodation. So, for example, at this Longitude one, you're basically purchasing not just a bed for the evening, but also some of the finest wines and food that Australia has to offer, but also some bespoke and personalised tour and experiences as well. So whilst you're in the Red Centre, obviously there are many day tours that you'll be travelling in large numbers. By staying at something like one of these luxury lodges, you'll tend to find that you're either going to be on a private tour, or even maybe sharing with 3 or 4 others in a 4-wheel drive. So it gives you a sense of real isolation and real getting into the heart of the destination as well. So yeah, that brings us to a short video I'm just going to show now. And this is just for the Luxury Lodges of Australia I was talking about now. And this will just give you a brief snapshot. There we go. So as you can see, we've kind of come to the end of the destinations I was talking about. But yeah, Miles, if there's any questions that have popped up in the chat, please feel free.
Yeah, you've got a question in there, which is a good one, actually. Hang on, let me just open it back up. It was a question about the motorhome and car hire in Australia, Matt. Is there an upper age limit for people having motorhome hire or car
hire? The car hire, it's 70 off the top of my head. However, we do work with other car hire providers that should be able to, accommodate as well. Now, with the motorhome hire, we've just recently started working with a new operator, so I'd probably need to double check on that and come back to you if that's okay. It's not something we've been asked for, but on that. So
good question. If you've stumped him, I always think that's a good question.
It is. I'll see you later.
I'll ask you a question, and it's a personal one, because on these things I always like to find out people's personal experiences. So Australia is a huge place. If you were going back tomorrow to have your dream experience in Australia, where would you be going and what would you be doing, Matt?
So I've probably already changed my mind about 3 times as I was talking, because I really love Victoria, what I was just talking about as well. So I'd probably go back to Tasmania, which is the destination you see behind me. I was there very briefly about 15-20 years ago as part of a working holiday visa, and I'd love to do some of the iconic walks along the the east coast of Tasmania. So along Freycinet National Park, and there's a small island, Maria Island, that does a 3 or 4 day walk along there. So that'd be my next little jaunt if it comes to fruition.
It's quite interesting, really, that you look at the map of Australia, we all see it. Tasmania is about that kind of size there. I spent a week in Tassie and thought, God, that will be more than enough. But actually, I could go back again, and Cradle Mountain Lodge up in the mountains there. You talked about lodges, is a fantastic place. I saw wombats. I saw quolls. I didn't even know quolls existed. I saw quolls. I saw fantastic wildlife. Hobart is the most vibrant city with great pubs and kind of a real good vibe about the place.
Yeah. And the great thing with Tasmania, I mean, as you mentioned there about the wildlife, I mean, I spent 3 weeks there a number of years ago, and again, I didn't feel as though I'd taken enough. And what can be what's very deceiving as well, you were saying, looking at the map of Australia, it is very small, but over 60% of it is national park. So it's very easy to, like you were saying, just dedicate 5 to 7 days for Tasmania. But I mean, talking about the Cradle Mountain National Park, it's the only place I've ever seen a platypus as well. And they're very difficult to spot. But also talking about Hobart, I know since I was there, it was, I know there's been a lot of new developments there. And there's the market on Saturday morning, Salamanca Market, and it's a great place for picking up local artifacts and, great foods and wines as well.
Do you need to answer that phone?
You know what? That's not wrong for about 3 days.
It's nice to be popular. Got another question for you. What time would you advise to allow for driving from Melbourne to Sydney, giving you enough time to explore along the way? Great question.
Perfect. So yeah, what I tend to see is people will sometimes allow 2 or 3 days, but the thing we do in that is you'll tend to find you're driving all of them 2 or 3 days and not doing it much justice. So I mean, you could easily do 2.5 weeks. However, I would never say that to a first or second time visitor. But to comfortably take in the main highlights, I'd say to allow maybe 5 to 6 days, to allow plenty of time for overnight stops, and hopefully even incorporating maybe 1 or 2 night stops as well. So it gives you a break for the driving.
Yeah, and I think actually we've had another question in saying, could you do another Zoom focusing on different parts of Australia? It's a really good point. I think we probably will, because one of the biggest challenges is when somebody comes in and wants to book a trip to Australia, it is very, very difficult, simply because of the size of the country and what you want to get out of it. I mean, there is, as we've talked about the icons, if you just want to do the icons, and Matt will probably say that probably the biggest seller is Sydney Rock and Reef. So you go to Sydney, you go to Ayers Rock, and then you go to the Barrier Reef. But by doing that, you're missing out Matt's favourite places. I love WA over out of Perth. You know, you're missing that completely. You're missing Adelaide, Kangaroo Island. You know, you could go on and on and on. And so it might be quite good to do some more of these so people can get a greater handle on where they would want to take in on their visit.
Sounds great, yeah. And I'll always talk about Australia, so you don't need to ask me twice.
And just so everybody can have a laugh at my expense, Confessions of a Travel Agent. I went to Ayers Rock. I got up at stupid o'clock in the morning to see sunrise. I was completely half asleep. I got in my hire car, drove to the viewpoint, and I thought, seems incredibly quiet. And only at that point did I look at the sign and realize that I was actually at the sunset viewpoint, not the sunrise viewpoint. So I had to get back in my car, drive at top speed all the way around the rock to the other side. So, you know, don't do what I did. It was very schoolboy, and I won't be doing that again.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah,
Have you heard anybody do that before, Matt, or is that a first even for you?
Yeah, I've never done that. I've never done that one. I'm just trying to think. I've had my fair share, though, to be honest. I'm just trying to think of something that comes to mind. But I realise it's before dinner time, so we best move on.
And the other useless fact about me that people might not know is I actually got married on the Great Barrier Reef, on Hayman Island on the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh wow!
So you know, it's another reason why I'm a huge fan of the country and everything it offers. You know, that's a great place in itself.
What a setting! I'm very jealous of Hayman Island. That is, not being married.
Well, you could almost do a whole presentation just about Queensland and the Barrier Reef, and maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah. No, definitely. You know, I mean, as I was saying, just I alluded to very briefly before, you know, it's taken in the Whitsundays as well. So you've got destinations like Hayman Island, which are great to incorporate at the end of a busy itinerary. But also, if you are wanting, you know, if you are really wanting to kind of get out onto the Barrier Reef and get, you know, really deep in there, you've got a whole host of sailing itineraries on some of the schooners that vary between 2 and 4 or 5 nights. And you can even try your hands at sailing. You know, you can do as much as you want, or you can just sit back and do nothing. So you get a skipper, the crew, and, you know, they put on great food, some great wine, and it can be anything from between 12 and 20 people. And it's a great way of, you know, getting associated with like-minded travelers as well.
I did a Captain Cook cruise that did just that. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
really memorable. It was just brilliant. John's also said, yes, could we have a Queensland and Barrier Reef presentation? Matt, I think you've got another booking. Congratulations. Just for everybody's benefit, if somebody is interested in going to Australia, what happens? Well, you know, pop into one of our shops. They'll sit down with you. They might give you a bit of a grilling in terms of what you're looking to get out of the trip to make sure we can tailor make it for you. But literally, every single booking we do for Australia is unique. We put it together bespoke for every customer. We can change things, put things in, put things out. You can go economy, you can go business class. We can mix and match every single variation of trip that you would want and add things in. We can book day trips for you. We can, you know, literally it's a one-stop shop for anything you're interested in doing. So, you know, we've got an Australia expert in every single shop that's trained by the Australian Tourism Board, so we are experts at it. So, and if anybody wants to speak to me, you can get in touch with me as well. Just pop into the shop and they can give me a ring. But Matt, thank you very much. We will book you in again.
Yes, definitely.
The biggest challenge will it be John's, Queensland and the Barrier Reef, or will it be another destination? We'll see, but we'll get you back. But thank you everybody for joining.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matt, for your wisdom over 40 minutes. Hope everybody enjoyed the session anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.